Wait before you scroll. Listen to this touching emotional story. This isn't just a story. It's a journey of grace, pain, and redemption. It was a cold evening in downtown Chicago. The wind howled between tall buildings, carrying with it the faint sound of car horns, laughter, and a city that never really sleeps. Underneath a dim streetlight, a man sat wrapped in a torn blanket beside a dumpster. His name was Daniel Brooks, a man the world had long forgotten. Once, Daniel had dreams, a good job, a small apartment, and a fiancée who believed in him. But life had a cruel sense of humor. A factory layoff, a sudden illness, a mountain of bills, and one by one, everything slipped away. Now he sat alone, counting the change in his pocket. Just $2.43. Enough for a cup of coffee to warm his hands. As he stared into the puddle by his feet, he saw a reflection of the life he'd lost, and maybe, just maybe, the man he could still become. Then it happened. A black SUV screeched to a halt near the corner cafe. A man in a sharp gray suit rushed out, speaking on his phone, his briefcase dangling carelessly by his side. He was in a hurry, distracted, the kind of hurry rich men always seem to be in. He disappeared into the cafe. Minutes later, he returned, jumped back into the SUV, and drove off. That's when Daniel noticed something lying on the sidewalk. A brown leather wallet. Thick, expensive looking, the kind that had probably never known emptiness. He hesitated, looked around. No one else had seen it. The wind lifted the corner of a receipt sticking out. A name printed in bold letters written, Michael Rivers. Daniel picked it up. His hands trembled. The wallet felt heavy, not just with money, but with meaning. He opened it slowly. Inside it was $600 in cash, several shiny credit cards, and a photo of a smiling woman holding a baby. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. $600 could mean food for weeks, a cheap motel room, maybe even a fresh start. But as the thought crossed his mind, guilt hit harder than hunger. He stared at the woman in the photo. Her smile seemed kind, innocent. He whispered, "He's got a family." Daniel closed the wallet and clutched it tight, his mind spinning. He stood there in the cold, torn between two worlds, the one that told him, "You deserve a break," and the other that whispered, "Do what's right." He looked up at the sky. Snowflakes began to fall, small, soft reminders of purity in a world full of stains. He muttered to himself, "What would Mom say if she saw me now?" He remembered her voice, gentle, unwavering. His late mom always says to him, "Daniel, no matter how poor you get, never let your heart become poorer." His throat tightened. He hadn't heard her voice in years, but tonight it felt closer than ever. He slipped the wallet into his coat pocket. Not to steal it, but to protect it. And to think. The city lights blurred as he walked aimlessly through the streets, passing people who didn't even glance his way. To them, he was invisible, just another shadow in the night. But fate was watching. At the next intersection, he stopped near a diner window. Inside, people were laughing, eating burgers, sipping hot chocolate. He placed his hand on the glass. On the other side, warmth. On his cold loneliness. He whispered, "If I can just get one meal, maybe I can think straight." He took one last look at the wallet in his hand. And that's when he saw a business card tucked behind the photo. It was written, Michael Rivers, founder, Rivers & Company, investments, a billionaire. Daniel's heart pounded and he said, "A billionaire who'd never miss $600. He stood there frozen, torn between morality and survival. Then, as if answering an invisible question, he looked at his reflection again, tired eyes, cracked lips, hollow cheeks. But beneath it all, there was still a trace of the man he once was. He whispered, "No, I can't do this." He turned and began walking toward the nearest police station. But halfway there, something strange happened. A man tripped beside him and yelled, "Watch where you're going, bum!" The words cut deep. He froze. The world around him blurred for a moment. A bum. A nobody. Maybe the world didn't deserve his honesty. Maybe doing the right thing didn't matter anymore. He thought that for a while. He clenched the wallet tighter. And that was the moment, the crossroads, where his choice would change everything. As the snow thickened, he looked up once more and said, "Maybe this is my last test," he said softly. And with that, he took a step into the unknown, unaware that by returning that wallet, he was about to restore faith not just in humanity, but in himself. He walked for nearly an hour, his boots scraping against the icy pavement, the city lights fading into a blur of gold and gray. The wallet in his pocket felt heavier with every step, as if it carried not just money, but the weight of his conscience. He passed a bakery, its windows fogged from the warmth inside. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. His stomach growled painfully. It had been almost 2 days since he'd eaten a real meal. He stopped, staring through the glass. A young couple laughed as they shared a croissant, the girl wiping crumbs off the boy's lips. Daniel smiled faintly, a sad, hollow smile, then lowered his head. He took out the wallet again. $600. That could buy him food for weeks, maybe a cheap room where he could finally sleep without the cold biting through his bones. He opened it and stared at the photo again, Michael Rivers' family, the woman and the baby. They looked happy, untouched by the world's cruelty. His eyes lingered on the baby, and he said, "You'll never know what it's like to sleep on a sidewalk," he whispered. "You'll never have to beg for food," and kept silent for a while. He closed the wallet with trembling hands. For a brief moment, he slipped it back into his coat, but then pulled out again, staring at it as if it were a living thing testing him. "Maybe it's a sign," he muttered. "Maybe God left this for me. Maybe this is how I start again." A cold wind blew through the street, lifting the corner of his torn blanket. He looked up at the sky, almost expecting an answer, but all he got was silence. He found an empty bench beside an old fountain and sat down. The city's noise faded. It was just him, his thoughts, and that wallet. He rubbed his hands together for warmth, tried to fight the pull of temptation. But hunger has a voice, and it doesn't whisper. It screams. He opened the wallet again, his fingers brushing over the cash. He pulled out a $20 bill. Just one. Just for tonight, he told himself. Just enough for food. He stood and began walking toward the diner across the street. But as he reached the door, a little boy ran past him, barefoot, clutching a small box. The boy stopped near the alley, opened the box, and inside was a half-eaten sandwich. He sat down and ate quietly, smiling to himself. Daniel froze. The image hit him like a lightning strike. That boy had less than him, and still managed to smile. He turned away, guilt flooding his chest. He stuffed the $20 back into the wallet and clenched it tightly. "No," he said under his breath. "I won't do it. Not like this." His voice cracked. He said, "I've lost everything, but I won't lose who I am." He looked up and saw a church across the street, small, old, with a flickering candlelight glowing through the window. Without thinking, he crossed over and pushed open the wooden door. The warmth inside hit him immediately. The air smelled of wax and hope. He walked to the last pew and sat down. A priest was lighting candles near the altar. When he noticed Daniel, he smiled kindly and said, "You're welcome to rest here, son." Daniel nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Father." The priest looked at him for a long moment. "Heavy burdens are lighter when shared," he said softly. Daniel's throat tightened. He reached into his coat, pulled out the wallet, and placed it on the bench beside him. "I found this," he said quietly, "and I don't know what to do." The priest sat down beside him. "You already know what to do," he said. "Your heart wouldn't be this heavy if you didn't." Daniel closed his eyes. Tears rolled down his cheeks, slow, silent, almost ashamed. "I'm tired of losing, Father. Tired of trying to be good and getting nothing back." The priest looked at him with gentle eyes as he said, "Sometimes doing right doesn't change your life instantly, but it changes you, and that's where miracles begin." Daniel stared at the wallet again. The priest's words echoed inside him. "It changes you." He wiped his tears, stood up slowly, and tucked the wallet back into his pocket. "I think I know what I have to do," he said. The priest nodded. "Then go, and may God walk with you." Daniel stepped back out into the freezing night. The snow was heavier now, blanketing the streets in white silence. He pulled his coat tighter, gripping the wallet inside. This time, his steps had purpose. He didn't know how, but deep down he felt that something or someone was guiding him as he disappeared down the street. The camera could have lingered on the church door slowly closing behind him, a symbol that the real journey had just begun. Morning crept in slowly, painting the streets with pale gold light. The snow had stopped, but the cold lingered like an unwelcome memory. Daniel hadn't slept. He had spent the night under the church's porch, clutching the wallet as if it were his compass, the last reminder of who he was before life unraveled. When he stood up, his legs ached, but his heart felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, he had a direction. He flipped open the wallet again and studied the driver's license. And again it was written Michael Rivers. Address, East Willow Street, apartment 204. It was on the other side of town, at least 2 hours away by foot. But Daniel didn't hesitate. He started walking. The city was waking up. Cars rushed by. People hurried to work. Coffee shops opened their doors, and the smell of roasted beans filled the air. He passed by a newspaper stand. The headline read, "Local CO expands charity for the homeless." Daniel smiled faintly. The irony wasn't lost on him. As he walked, his thoughts wandered. What if this Michael guy doesn't believe me? What if he thinks I stole it? But something deep inside pushed him forward. Not hope, not faith, just the simple desire to do what was right. By noon, he reached East Willow Street. It was a quiet neighborhood. Trees lined the sidewalks, and every house looked freshly painted. The kind of place that seemed untouched by hardship. Daniel hesitated at the gate. His clothes were torn, his hair messy, and his face pale from the cold. He looked out of place, like a ghost wandering through someone else's dream. He took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. A woman opened the door, the same woman from the picture, inside the wallet. Her expression shifted instantly from confusion to suspicion. "Yes," she asked cautiously. "Good afternoon, ma'am," Daniel said softly. I found this." He held out the wallet with trembling hands. "It belongs to Michael Rivers, I believe." The woman's eyes widened. "Oh my God," she whispered. "That's my husband's wallet. He's been looking everywhere for it." Before Daniel could say another word, a man appeared behind her, tall, clean-cut, in his late 30s. Michael Rivers, the man from the photo. He stared at Daniel, then at the wallet. "Where did you find this?" His tone was sharp, guarded. Daniel swallowed hard. "On the street near Brookside Avenue. It must have fallen when you parked or walked past. I wanted to return it." Michael stepped closer, studying him. His eyes moved from Daniel's face to his torn coat, to his cracked boots. "You could have taken everything," he said slowly. "I almost did," Daniel admitted. "But I couldn't. I've lost a lot in life, but not my conscience." Michael's wife covered her mouth, her eyes welling up. Michael took the wallet, opened it, and counted the money. Every bill was still there. He looked up at Daniel again, his expression softening. "What's your name?" "Daniel. Daniel Brooks." Michael nodded. "Daniel, you have no idea what this means. I thought people like you didn't exist anymore." Daniel gave a small smile. "People like me? Sir, I'm just trying to be human." Michael's wife stepped forward.
Thank you.
"Please come inside. At least let me get you something warm to eat." Daniel hesitated. He wasn't used to kindness. Not anymore. "That's not necessary, ma'am. I just wanted to return what's yours." But she insisted, her tone motherly. "Please. It's freezing out there." After a moment, Daniel nodded. Just for a minute. Inside, the warmth felt almost unreal. The aroma of coffee and baked cookies filled the room. A small child played near the fireplace, laughing. It reminded Daniel of a life he once had, before things fell apart. Michael handed him a mug of coffee. "You mentioned you've lost a lot. What happened, if you don't mind me asking?" Daniel looked down, his fingers tight around the cup. "Used to have a small auto repair shop. After my wife passed away from cancer, I lost everything. Couldn't keep up with the bills, lost the shop, the apartment. Been on the streets for nearly a year now." Silence filled the room. Even the little boy stopped playing and looked up at him. Michael's voice broke the silence. "I'm sorry, Daniel. Truly." Daniel nodded slightly. Life happens. You either stay bitter or stay kind. I chose kind, even if it cost me. Michael leaned back, clearly moved. You know, I needed to hear that today. Daniel tilted his head. Why? Michael smiled faintly, almost painfully. I've been so busy building a company that I forgot what simple honesty looks like. You reminded me. They sat there quietly for a moment. Two men from different worlds, yet connected by something invisible and pure. Daniel stood up, ready to leave. Thank you for the coffee. I should go. Michael stopped him. Wait, can you give me a minute? He went upstairs, leaving Daniel and his wife exchanging a soft, grateful glance. When Michael returned, he held a small envelope. Daniel, please take this. It's not charity. It's gratitude. Daniel shook his head. I didn't do it for money, sir. I know, Michael said. That's exactly why you deserve it. Daniel hesitated, then slowly accepted the envelope. Thank you. Really. As he turned to leave, Michael said something that would stay with him forever. You gave me back more than a wallet today, Daniel. You gave me back faith. Daniel smiled, the kind of smile that reaches the heart. Then I guess we both found something we lost. He walked out into the sunlight, holding the envelope close, unaware that this act of honesty was about to change not just his life, but countless others. Because what Michael did next would make the world stop and listen. That evening, the world began to notice a man no one had cared to look at before. Michael Rivers sat in his study long after Daniel left, staring at the wallet on his desk. It wasn't the money or the leather, it was what it represented. In a city where everyone was chasing more, a man who had nothing chose to do what was right. He opened his laptop and began typing a post on his company's page that has over 100 million subscribers. Today, I met a man who reminded me what honesty truly looks like. A homeless man named Daniel Brooks found my wallet, with every dollar still inside, and walked miles across the city to return it. He didn't ask for praise or money, just kindness. I've met many successful people in my life, but none richer in heart than him. He ended the post with a photo he had quietly taken before Daniel left. Daniel standing near the porch, the sunlight falling softly on his face, a small, tired smile hinting at hope. Michael hesitated for a moment, then hit post. Within hours, the story spread like wildfire. Twitter, Facebook, news blogs, everywhere. Hashtag Faith in Humanity began trending. People were sharing, commenting, crying. We need more Daniels in this world. That man deserves everything good coming his way. Someone should find him. Let's help him. By the next morning, Michael's laptop and phone was flooded with messages from reporters and charity organizations. Even his company's customer base doubled overnight. But Michael wasn't thinking about publicity. He was thinking about Daniel, where he was, if he had eaten, if he was okay. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd saved before Daniel left. Daniel, it's Michael, he said when the line picked up. Daniel's voice was low, cautious. Yes, sir. Is everything all right? More than all right, Michael replied. You're the reason my phone hasn't stopped ringing. The whole world knows your story now. Daniel was silent for a long moment. My story? Yes, Michael said with a smile. I posted what you did yesterday. People are inspired, Daniel. They want to meet you. Daniel chuckled softly. Well, I don't know about all that. I didn't do much. Maybe not to you, Michael said, but you changed something in people today. You reminded them that goodness still exists. And that's actually what this story video is all about. Later that afternoon, a car pulled up to the same park bench where Daniel usually sat. Michael stepped out, holding a paper bag of food and a heavy coat. He handed them to Daniel, who looked both confused and touched. You didn't have to. I know, Michael interrupted gently, but I wanted to. And there's more. He pointed to the street corner. A small group of people stood there, journalists, volunteers, strangers holding handmade signs that read, "Thank you, Daniel." Daniel froze, emotion flooding his face. What is this? Michael smiled. The world you thought forgot you? They see you now. A young woman stepped forward and handed Daniel a folded newspaper. On the front page was his photo under the headline. It was written, "Homeless Man's Honesty Restored Faith in Humanity." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He tried to speak, but couldn't. Michael put a hand on his shoulder. "You deserve to be seen, Daniel. Not for what you lost, but for who you are." The crowd began clapping. Some offered hugs, others food, clothes, even job offers. Daniel stood there, overwhelmed, the noise of kindness almost too much to take in. He wiped a little tear rolling down his cheek, looked up at the sky and whispered, "My daddy, you always told me the world still had good people. I see it now, and Mom, thank you for building this in me." He was very emotional at this moment. That night, as the news channels played his story, people across the country felt something shift. Strangers donated to homeless shelters. Families left food for those in need on the street, at the motherless baby's home, and so on. And Daniel, he finally had a warm bed that night. Not in a shelter, but in a small apartment Michael arranged for him. For the first time in years, he slept peacefully. But the story wasn't over yet. The next morning, something even bigger happened. Something that would seal Daniel's legacy forever. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of Daniel's new apartment. For the first time in a year, he woke up to quiet. Not the sound of cars, footsteps, or the cold wind of the streets. He blinked at the ceiling, as if unsure whether it was all real. A knock came at the door. When he opened it, Michael was standing there, smiling. "Morning, Daniel. Hope I didn't wake you." Daniel rubbed his eyes. "No, sir. I just can't believe I'm waking up somewhere safe." Michael chuckled softly. "Get used to it. You deserve safety." He stepped inside, setting down a folder on the table. "I wanted to show you something." Daniel looked puzzled. "What's that?" Michael opened the folder. Inside was a clean set of documents, and at the top was printed in bold letters, "Employment offer, Rivers and Company." Daniel's mouth fell open. "This is for me?" Michael nodded. "I spoke with my board last night. We want you to join us. You'll start as a logistics assistant. Good pay, benefits, accommodation, and a fresh start." Daniel was speechless. His eyes welled up again, but this time not from sadness, from gratitude so deep it left him trembling. "Why me?" he whispered and felt sober. Michael smiled gently. "Because the world needs people like you inside it, not forgotten outside of it. You showed integrity when you had nothing. I want my company built on that kind of foundation." Michael sounded so emotional this time. Then Daniel covered his face, shaking his head. "I don't even know what to say." Michael placed a hand on his shoulder. "Say yes. That's all." Daniel laughed through tears. Then yes, 1,000 times yes. As weeks passed, the viral story continued to spread. Talk shows, news anchors, and podcasts all repeated the same message. Honesty still exists. People began referring to Daniel as the honest man of New York. But what truly moved people wasn't just that he returned a wallet. It was how he carried himself after the spotlight. He didn't seek fame. He didn't boast. Every time someone asked him why he did it, his answer was always the same. Because doing right shouldn't depend on whether someone is watching. And that's one important thing you have to learn about in this story. Months later, on a cold winter evening, Michael and Daniel stood outside the same restaurant where they first met. Daniel wasn't in torn clothes. He wore a clean jacket, a staff ID badge, and a quiet smile that spoke of peace. "Remember this place?" Michael asked, looking around. Daniel chuckled. "I'll never forget it. This was where my life began again." Michael nodded. Funny how one small act can change everything. You could have taken that wallet and no one would have known. Daniel looked out at the street, watching people pass. "Maybe no one else would have known," he said, "but I would have, and that's enough." The two men stood there in silence for a moment, the city lights flickering like stars around them. Finally, Michael said softly, "You know what, Daniel, sometimes the universe tests us by offering easy wrongs instead of hard rights. But when we choose a hard right, life always rewards it in ways we can't imagine." And it's actually true. Sometimes life never goes as planned, but there's always a payback for every decision you take in any situation. Daniel smiled and said, "Guess that's what people mean by karma." "Exactly," Michael said. "Good energy circles back. Always." A few weeks later, Daniel used part of his first paycheck to buy hot meals for the homeless men at the same park he once slept in. He didn't film it, and he didn't boast about it. He just handed out meals quietly, smiling as he said, "Payback's not always revenge. Sometimes it's kindness returned." And that night, as the city hummed and life went on, Daniel whispered to himself saying, "Maybe we can't change the whole world, but we can change someone's world." If the story touched you, ask yourself one question. When was the last time you chose kindness, even when no one was watching? Let's discuss about that in the comments section. Because sometimes one honest choice can be right
I
in
really
entire
appreciate
life,
you meeting me out here.
just like it
Of course,
did for
man.
Daniel Brooks.
Anything for you.